And we're live! Welcome everybody to Eddy Lynch and Eddie Nigma's review series. It continues and you know what? We're just not gonna go away, my friends. So you might as well sit back, grab a seat, enjoy the show. Here we go. We got a list that Eddy Nigma picked this time around. We got the top 10 women's wrestlers of all time. But before we get started to that, Eddy Nigma, care to say anything?
Ahoy, ahoy, wrestling fans! Good to be back on this Good Friday, celebrating the women who have contributed so much to the business that we love so much.
Sounds good. All right, so since it's your list, do you care to kick us off?
Yep, I'll kick us off. And I should say first, my list doesn't contain any current women's wrestlers, I guess,
Okay.
because I guess when I say greatest of all time, they're still going. So some of them we probably haven't even seen their greatest yet. So I just want to say no discredit to any current women on the roster.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
so number one on my list is going to be the Fabulous Moolah.
Number 1 or number
I'm pretty
10?
sure number 10, my bad.
Yeah.
Number 10, Fabulous Moolah. For her time in wrestling, man, she was great, and I think everyone for the rest of their lives will always know who the Fabulous Moolah was when it comes to women's wrestling, because she pretty much set the standard, and she was like the women's champion for like over 30 years. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
she stood the test of time, and she really inspired everyone we see today. That's a woman, and that is wrestling. So yeah, Fabulous Moolah, number 10.
Cool. Sounds good. So, mine is going to be a little more modern. I guess maybe I should brush up, but oh well, it's my list. If you don't like it, too bad. Alright, anyway. Number 10 on my list, we got Sasha Banks. So, pretty much she's the perfect package. She's the complete package. There's not much more I could say about that. I mean, look, she's got her character is all the way there. People listen about her. So, she's got all that plus more. She's got the recognition. She's helped ignite this this women's revolution that we all are talking about today. And the fact is, possibly without her, there would be no women's revolution. And I feel that way about each of the four horsewomen, because they did help contribute to that. Or, AJ Lee helped start the whole thing. This is where they, kept it going. All right, number
Nice
9.
pick. Number 9 goes to Ivory. Many of you newer fans may not remember her, but Ivory, she was a kick-ass wrestler. She started in the 80s. Yeah. She's a classic, man. She started in the 80s. She came over to the WWE not until the late 90s, but when it came to in-ring talent, Ivory was there. And she is a former 2-time women's champion herself, and on top of that, for a woman at her age, when she even came to the WWE, she still looked really good. And Ivory helped a lot of the younger women coming up a lot. She was a trainer. Hell, she was even a trainer on Tough Enough one of the seasons too. So Ivory played a big role in the Attitude Era, and I really respect the woman a lot and what she's done for the business. She took it seriously. She wasn't all about, showing TNA every week. One of her best gimmicks was when she was in Right to Censor, and that was her longest and strongest women's title reign. So Ivory's one of the greats, and if you have never heard of her, you should go back and check her out. She's on the network, trust me.
All right. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, so number 9 for me, we got Mickie James. Now, I love the little rendition. I think when it comes to Mickie James, she has got mic skills beyond belief. Even though she's never really known for it, she does show that she's a pretty much an underrated promo. So, there's that. She's got everything. She's got accolades beyond belief. She's a 5-time women's champion. She, that includes other promotions from, not only WWE, but from TNA. And, she, to my knowledge, she has from WWE and TNA and possibly to to other promotions that I haven't really done my
I
research
think there
on.
were a few, yeah, indie promotions she was a part of
Yeah,
too.
I'm sure she's held like a women's title in Ring of Honor, possibly. Um, I just got to do my research. But look, she's well accomplished. She's one of the best in the ring. There's no denying that. She's proven that, since she's debuted, she's one of the best. She's proven that now she's still one of the best, She can go with the women now, she can go with the women then. She's just one kick-ass wrestler to have around, and I'm thankful that she's kept in touch with her wrestling ability even after she left WWE in 2009, and she went on to just stay underground with other promotions, including TNA. So yeah, good on Mickey. Number 8.
Number 8 for me is another classic in Molly Holly. Molly Holly is one of the best women's wrestlers in the world for any generation. She had a pretty funny gimmick coming in as Molly Holly, but she was, the cousin to Hardcore and Crash Holly. And then when that ran its course, she kind of fell into her own, and she just really, I think, created a name for herself when she dyed her hair, cut it, turned heel.
I
Yeah, go
saw
ahead.
her
You saw
in
her win.
2003. All throughout that entire year, because I was collecting episodes of WWE onto my PS3, downloading them, trying to kind of build a collection and just kind of
All
my
right.
knowledge. So I had every single episode of WWE, watched every single last one of them, and Molly Holly was definitely up there in terms of one of my favorites. I really enjoyed the pure and wholesome gimmick. I really enjoyed the
Yeah.
just everything she was. She had a really underrated moveset too. I remember she did the shoulder breaker,
Oh,
kind of
man.
teased the tombstone and made people. It was crazy because the crowd got silent that day. I remember, but yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, dude.
she's definitely up there in terms of greatest, and I can't believe I didn't put her on my list myself. Damn.
So I can never forget Molly Holly, man, because I had followed her. She was in WCW first as Miss Madness, one of Macho Man's valets, and
Yeah.
they used to make her wear like these gowns to wrestle in. But the
Yeah.
moves she would do in these gowns, I was like, why are you doing this in that dress? Like, become a just wrestler. So when she came over to the WWF, she tore it up. I mean, I loved her Molly Holly gimmick when she was the cousin to Crash and Hardcore Holly. But
Yeah.
I really enjoyed her once they turned her heel, and she said she became women's champion, and the pure and wholesome thing. I loved it.
She's a
And then
surefire
I
future
think,
Hall of Famer.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
WrestleMania 20, shout out to her, got shaved bald, by
Yeah.
Victoria.
Yeah.
So, I remember watching an interview with her, and she said she wanted so bad because they were going to cancel the women's match from WrestleMania 20, and she said she wanted so bad for women to be represented that it was her idea to shave her head so long as they put a women's match on the card. So she lost her hair so women could be on the grandest stage of them all. So I really give it up to Molly Holly.
I'm really disappointed in myself for not putting her on that list, because damn shit. See, I hadn't known that, but had I would have, I could easily have shoehorned her in on this list. I'm a little mad at myself, but
Hey, man. It's
yeah.
all right, but you have plenty of time to go back and watch your history, dude. There's a
Yeah.
lot of inspirational and good people back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure
So I
we'll
mean,
we'll,
Molly Holly,
we'll do this
she held
list.
it in for the women's revolution.
Yeah.
She had the women showcased at the 20-year anniversary of of the grandest stage of them all. So
Yeah.
there you go, ladies. If you didn't know that, there it is.
Yeah. And we'll redo these lists, years down the line, I'm sure, cuz every year our opinions are going to change. No doubts about that.
Oh yeah,
Um so, if it's all the same with you, we could redo these lists, like, make this kind of an annual thing.
I am down for that.
Yeah. All right. So, number 8 for me, that is Jacqueline, Jake Quillen, however you want to
Boom.
say it. She, well, I just look. She is definitely one of the best. She went into the Hall of Fame last year, and
And I
rightfully
was so
so.
happy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I fell more in love with Jacqueline when I started up on my research, and around the time I was making the top 20 favorite women's wrestlers, and I just kind of made like video tributes to each of them. Well, in one whole video, but I started looking at Jacqueline's, wrestling ability, and it's so
Right.
amazing,
Yeah.
So, I'm researching Jacqueline even more. I'm seeing all the stuff that she's doing, the Miss Dallas. She's just so really good. She,
Well, did you read about her stuff where when she was just wrestling men? Like she was going toe to toe with men.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was not aware of that. For quite some time, I was not aware of that,
Yeah.
and I think she's definitely up there just for the stuff alone. Like just hearing about that she wrestled men and went toe to toe with them. That's one thing you don't often hear about. And granted,
And the thing
we're
is, Jacqueline was a small cookie. She was only like 5'5", 5'6".
yeah,
She wasn't built like 5'10" Charlotte,
yeah,
or 5'10" Nia Jax. Jacqueline was a small girl.
yeah. And here's the thing, I understand there are women who are wrestling Lucha Underground right now, but see, that's the thing. These were different times, um,
Yeah. But
different
Jacqueline was one of the
perceptions.
original trailblazers for women
Yeah,
getting into the ring with men. I mean, this was before China.
yeah,
And people may remember China for that more because China she was intimidating, she was posing looking. But then you
yeah,
take the polar opposite type of woman, Jacqueline, and she's going toe to toe with the same type of men and
yeah,
beating some of them too. So
yeah. So
nice pick. I'm glad you knew about Jacqueline,
yeah, yeah, definitely. And again, Jacqueline's just one of the best. You know,
who had some great
um,
matches with Molly Holly back in the day, by the way, too.
yeah. I remember there was actually a fatal four way with her, Trish Stratus, Victoria,
I
and
think
I think Jazz,
Victoria, yeah, yeah.
and those were definite. That was definitely one of my favorite matches of Jacqueline, and I gotta do some more research on her because she's definitely one of the best.
Did you got to go back like even a WWE 2K17? They featured a match with Jacqueline and Ivory. It was one of the greats.
Yeah,
Those two blew it up because they came in around the same time in the WWE, like in '98, '99.
yeah,
But people were so focused on Sable and Sunny because they were the hot bombshells. So every time you got Jacqueline and Ivory in the ring, they stole the show because these chicks could actually wrestle.
yeah,
And Jacqueline and Ivory's wrestling skills, they just really complemented each other during the Attitude Era. So that's why I was happy when Ivory got the belt on her and started feuding with Jacqueline and stuff like that. I was like, finally, women's wrestling. There's only two on the roster, but hell, at
yeah,
least they're the ones fighting for it.
yeah. All right, so number 7.
So my number 7 is actually my favorite women's wrestler of all time. My list, I'm not necessarily doing it by skill or anything. It's just who I think is the 10 greatest of all time. But
Hmm.
Trish Stratus is my number 7 pick and my all-time favorite women's wrestler.
Yeah.
For these reasons alone, Trish Stratus was a beautiful woman. And every boy wrestling fan, that's all we can ask for. We like women that are nice to look at. Not all the time, but when you're young, you're growing up, you're just like, oh my God, she's so hot. You want to have your dream wife. And that's how Trish Stratus was in looks. But I was always the kid that wanted women's wrestlers to actually wrestle as well. And I
Hmm.
developed a lot of respect for Trish because she came in as just the smoking hot valet manager, and she really transformed herself into one of the best wrestlers of
Yeah.
all time. And I have mad respect. I mean, she wanted to be known for just her good looks. And trust me, she would have been, but I think she made herself even more memorable by just learning the craft. I mean, she was very green when she stepped in the ring. She took that experience and said, hell no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And she's become, she's, I think, a 7-time women's champion.
7 times.
Her reigns have been solid. Yeah, 7 times, I believe, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, it's Trish Stratus is. I have mad respect for her. She'll always be my favorite. She
Yeah.
really tore it up. Her and Lita started their own women's revolution.
I
With
gotta
just the
agree.
two, just their rivalry alone sparked it up, and Lita fired all the women's ass on the roster at that time to do better, and they made that division really, really strong. And they
Yeah.
have probably the best women's rivalry of all time, like the best. That
Yeah.
inspired so many women, and you'll hear a lot of the women that wrestle today always talk about Trish and Lita. But yeah, Trish, one of the best of all time. She deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, along with Jacqueline and Lita, you know.
Yeah.
And I just hope there's a few more that join them, because these are the girls from the past that, really had people paying attention to women's wrestling at that time.
Yeah, I gotta agree. Trish is definitely one of my favorites of all time. So yeah. All right, number 7 for me. So speaking of Trish, we got her counter rival, Lita. So is there really anything I could say that would be different? Because look, Lita, she has the badass punk chick look. Um,
Yep.
that's what most fans remember her by. Um, I remember seeing her debut with S.A. Rios.
S.A. Rios.
Yeah, and I remember the episode where watching the actual episode where S.A. Rios turned on Lita and attacked her, and where the Hardy Boys
Hardy saved her.
or Team
Yeah.
Extreme, formed, and the Hardy saved
That was
her,
the
right?
birth of Team Extreme. Yep.
Yeah, so that those she's definitely I can't talk today. She's definitely laid in some memorable moments, not only from the 2000s, but also during her rivalry with Edge. She was so hateable, so
Man,
detestable, especially because
yes.
of all the real life stuff that happened with Edge. I remember when I was a little kid watching that, and and then when I was in what, 6th grade, after reading the documentary of Matt Hardy, I grew to find out that that storyline was actually, or bits and pieces of it were, glued to real life. And at first I did lose a lot of respect for, Lita and Edge, but, I grew over time to, as a fan, just forgive the both of them and look at what they've done as, wrestlers. And I'm sure they're good people now. And, I think Lita, for the most part, has, shown that, helped show
She
that
was sorry for. Yeah.
yeah,
She's so. Yeah. Sorry.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm
Okay.
choking on my water.
Oh, it's cool. I hate when that happens. Like I got to talk
Yeah.
about earlier, and like the mango tea I got like went down the wrong tube earlier. Ah, I hated that.
Yep. Same with this water.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Lita has proven, she's like, when you talk about trailblazing, she is definitely trailblazed for like women's high flying wrestlers,
Yep.
and I'm sure she's blazed a trail for, women's wrestling in general. And
Dude, she was doing top rope Hurricane Ranas better than most of the men
yeah,
in the cruiserweights. Like she
yeah,
was just so fun to watch.
yeah. And it's crazy to think, all the stuff that Lita has done. You, people often talk about the match with Trish Stratus, on Monday Night Raw that they
The first two
headlined,
women to ever main event on Monday Night Raw too.
and then people also, or like some people also reference, that suicide dive that she took where she landed on her neck. But, people don't often talk about the fact that she continued that match for, a good while, even longer. And I think even won that
And
match, am I
still
right?
won it. And
Yeah,
won
so
it.
it's
Yeah.
like,
She
so
won
it's
the
like,
women's championship that match.
it's just the kind of wrestler Lita is, and that's hard that you can't teach. I sound like Enzo Amore
Nope.
now, but you can't teach that, you know?
Well, you just look at her backstory. She's hanging out at these wrestling events, helping set up the ring and stuff like that, and trying to do this. Like Lita really wanted to do it, and doing the same thing. She left here, went to Mexico, and
Yeah,
that's where she really got her start. And she came back and killed it. But people
yeah,
like that, I respect. Especially these
yeah,
women. You know, she had the heart, and it definitely showed.
yeah, for
I guess
damn
we can
sure.
stay on Lita because she's actually my next pick. She's number 6, I believe.
Ha!
Number
All
6.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, Lita would be next on my list too. Like I said, just for the same reasons I respect Trish. Like she wanted to do it. I mean, they're two very different women who came in different ways, but their drive just really inspired a women's revolution that I don't think will ever die. And I think that the true trailblazers for that would have to be those two. You know,
Yeah.
would have to be those two. Because it's funny, you look at the girls on the roster today, and you can see a little bit of Trish and some, a little bit of Lita and some. So, the Trish and Lita rivalry, it'll probably live forever. Lita,
Yeah.
always one of my favorites.
Uh.
I've forgiven her for the mistakes she made. We're all human beings. Because
Yeah.
for me, I never was even really upset with her because I don't care about what happens outside of the ring. I love what you do in the ring. She's always
Mhm.
kept me entertained. I kind of wish she was still around, but she's off
Yeah.
doing bigger, better things now, and I applaud her and thank her for everything she's done for this business. And
Yeah.
P.S. And by the way, people, if you didn't know, Lita was the very first woman involved in a cage match on Raw against Victoria. So yes,
Yeah. That much is very much true. Um. I didn't.
it was a Raw roulette.
I actually remember seeing that match. It was crazy. It was good. It was, you know, really enjoyable stuff. So be sure to check
Yes.
that out. All right, number 5, or no, I'm sorry, number 6 for me. We got Charlotte Flair. Okay, I can I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, she is arguably, one of the best on the women's division right now, and she's already, staking her claim with, being the best of all time. Just look at the promo she's given. I don't think, you know, I don't think there's a woman alive. And I love Trish. I love Lita. I love, a lot of the women's wrestlers, but I don't think there's a woman alive that could top what Charlotte Flair could do right now. You know, um, now maybe I'm being a little naive because I'm I'm still like, my I need to brush up my history a lot on women's wrestling, but I think like just Charlotte on the mic alone, it just does wonders. Charlotte in the ring does wonders. And you talk about people who come a long way from not knowing a damn thing, and Charlotte, she came a long ass way. She came from 2013, I believe, is when she started her career. It has been what, 4 years now since she's debuted, and to see that in just 4 years, under five, not even a decade, just under 5 years, she has improved the way she has, and is so savvy in the ring the way she is. And I love Lita, I love Jacqueline, I love all these women, but there's not too many people who can do what Charlotte can do. And I don't just mean in the ring, but also on the mic. So my hat's off to Charlotte.
All right. I can definitely see Charlotte right now as a future Hall of Famer, though. I
Yeah,
definitely can. And
yeah,
not just because she's a Flair either. She really has made her own name for herself. I enjoy Charlotte. She's
yeah,
fun to watch. She's good in the ring. And I think I will agree with you when you say that she may be the best woman as far as promos go.
yeah,
Like, she kills it.
yeah,
Yeah, she kills it 100% every time. And the crazy thing is, like, her promos, it just seems natural. Like, I would
yeah,
believe that's how she would be if I met her in real life.
yeah. Like
So,
I'm thinking the same thing. Like I remember I was watching her podcast with Chris Jericho, and I was sitting here just listening to the whole thing, and I was like, it's. I was thinking to myself, it's so hard to forget she's. I felt so out of place because
yeah, because you're like, wait, who is this Charlotte Flair on here? Or is it really Charlotte? Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But like I was saying, because like she sounded like, believe me, just the way she was speaking, it's the same thing with Sasha. Like both of them outside of the ring, like they're so humility. What's humility? They both
humble. You could
have
just say,
humility. They both have
yeah.
humility, like beyond belief, and just the way they speak, it's so different. And it's, I see their in-ring characters, and it's like, wow. But like Charlotte,
Yeah,
so I'm
I've seen some
listening.
interviews with Charlotte, and that's why I'm just like, whoa, she's the
Yeah,
polar opposite of what I would expect her to be.
yeah, and like seeing her, like seeing how she is, it's so hard to forget just how. It's so hard to forget just how likable she really is outside of the ring when you see her character, and then seeing her,
Right.
her outside thing. It's vice versa. So, it's just, Charlotte. She plays her
And
character to perfection.
I've always been a big fan of heels in general, whether it be in comic books or wrestling. I'm a bigger fan of the bad guys than the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
But when a bad guy can actually make me hate them, then they've done that job right. They've written that character right, or that person has played that character right. And
Yeah.
Charlotte's one of those people. I love to hate Charlotte.
Yeah.
It's like I'm rooting for her, but I kind of wanted to get her ass to lose. But I'm like, damn. You're so
Yeah.
bad, you're good, So hats off to
So
Charlotte.
bad. I'm so good
Yeah.
that I'm so bad.
There's been very few wrestlers like that. Mr. Perfect was probably the first wrestler that I was just like, I hate you, you douchebag, but you are cool.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Charlotte's the same way. Good job, Charlotte.
Number
Because I
5.
never do the bad
Oh,
guys.
sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, my number 5 would actually be Alundra Blaze.
Alundra Blaze.
Big time trailblazer for the women's division. Yes, most of you that threw away the women's championship on Nitro, and that was a dick move to do at the time. But Alundra Blaze in general was just amazing, and I know she was a big inspiration for a lot of female wrestlers today. She was a technical high flyer, and around the time she came in, you didn't see a lot of that in women's wrestling. So she actually kind of really started that before Lita did. Lita got more extreme and creative with it, but it started with Alundra Blaze, and she was a really great technical wrestler on top of that. And before she came over to WWF, she was known as Medusa in WCW. Actually, every time she was WCW, her name was Medusa. But she's a definite classic, one of the best, hand-to-hand technical female wrestlers ever to grace a wrestling ring ever. And besides her throwing that belt in the trash due to Alundra Blaze is kick-ass. I'm glad they inducted her into the Hall of Fame. I didn't think I'd ever see that coming because of what she did. So I'm glad Vince was able to forgive. I know he'll never forget, but I'm glad he paid honor to where honor is due because, she held it down for him for a few years as pretty much the ringleader of the women's division in the WWF at that time. And that was back in the early to mid-90s. So I'm glad he paid respect where it was due because Alundra Blaze is one of the best.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have not seen Alundra Blaze. I haven't really checked up my history on her, so I wish I could sit here and give praises, but I can't. It would only be I don't know. It just wouldn't be my.
Well, I highly recommend you check out Alundra Blaze,
and I will,
because
I will for sure.
She was effing amazing in the 90s. Like amazing. Yeah. Like she was the women's division. And the only women that they could actually get to beat her were like that era's like Nia Jax, Alundra Blaze only lost to Bertha Faye and Bull Nakano, which I really wanted to put Bull Nakano on the list. She would have been number 11, but we'll talk about her another day.
All right. All right. So, number 5 for me, we got AJ Lee. All right. Boom. So we're down to my bottom 5, and this is where you guys can pretty much see, my favorites of all time. And I don't think, for all the opinions I change a lot on, I don't see this list changing, even remotely. But let's get into AJ Lee. So, where to begin? AJ Lee has been up there in terms of greatest of all time on the mic. I talked about Charlotte not being able to, let anybody touch her on the mic.
AJ would come close.
Yeah, AJ would come close. Yeah. And, I forgot about her getting into the whole mix of Charlotte, but I think when it comes to AJ Lee, you talk about women's wrestling, women's revolution. Like I mentioned before, she's the one who helped ignite that thing. Her Paige and Emma, when they were in NXT, they were starting the women's revolution. AJ was, again, one of the pioneers. What a big word I'm using.
She planted the seeds for the women's revolution.
There you go.
AJ dug the hole, she planted the seeds, and she watered it. And then
and then so sprouted so sprouted every women's wrestler, that you probably wouldn't have gotten to see that well showcased. Think about Bailey and Sasha. Think about where their characters would have been had it not been for AJ Lee, being able to, you know, pave that road for them, so to speak, or plant that seed, as Eddy Nigma had put it. Um, but it's not just that, but her in the ring, she was again one of the untouchables. I really enjoyed her in the ring. She wasn't a big power lifter wrestler. She had striking, she was running, she a little bit of a high
She was
flyer.
pretty tiny compared to most of the women on the roster
Oh
at the
yeah.
time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She definitely had that underdog look, you know.
Yeah. She was a very good underdog and it's crazy because she could
Yeah,
play both roles to perfection.
she
Um,
could.
there's not too many.
The little underdog or the small feisty bully.
Yeah, and it's like, there's not too many people you can genuinely, and I use that word strongly, genuinely buy as a heel and a baby. And AJ
Right.
Lee is one of those people you can genuinely invest in, you know, as both. Cause like I can invest in, let's say, Christian as a heel and as a face, but I don't think I can genuinely buy him as, a face, you know.
Right. Because he's
Um
so good as a heel.
yeah, exactly. Or, Sammy is another example. Even though I've never seen the guy as a heel, I don't think I can genuinely buy the guy as a face or as a heel because he's so good as a face. So,
Yeah, I can't
like,
even imagine him being a heel. Like I can't.
yeah,
It's
it's
weird.
just so hard. Yeah. So it's like, just, those two for example, it's crazy. AJ Lee is definitely one of those people I can genuinely buy as both. So, with that being said, number 4.
Actually, my number 3 goes
Number 4.
to.
What happened to number 4?
Is it my number 4? Oh
Yeah.
crap!
Yeah.
I skipped one. My
Yeah.
bad. All right.
It's
Well,
all
this
good.
woman was actually mentioned and was on your list earlier, and that's Jacqueline.
Ooh.
And pretty much for a lot of all the reasons you mentioned earlier, I was following Jacqueline since the '80s. She was
Right.
Miss Dallas and everything, so I've known all about her career. When she came over to the WWF, I was really excited
Mhm.
because they only had Sable and Sunny up until that point, and they even had like the women's championship on Sable, and I was like, why? She has nobody to fight.
Yeah.
So they finally bring Jacqueline in, and I'm like, oh my god, shit's about to get real, and it did. And Jacqueline did her best to make Sable look good, but she really helped to hold down the women's division at that time until they started getting women trickling in very slowly, mind you, that actually wrestled. And
Yeah.
that's when Ivory came next, and I was like, yes, another woman who can wrestle. And they both tore it up until, like I said, other ones started slowly trickling in. Then all of a sudden, you got Trish, you have Lita, you have Jazz, you have Victoria, and Jacqueline was really the first one to help start building a strong women's division because she was the strongest in her division when she came over to the WWF. She's a former
Yeah.
cruiserweight champion because she's mixed it up with men. So she's one of the very few women to actually hold championships that are for men. So she really broke that mode of women crossing over into the boys' yard and dominating it. So Jacqueline deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, man. And I know she was helping training newer women's wrestlers for the WWF for a while. And I hope she's still doing it and helping a lot of these girls because she was one of the best.
Yeah, for damn sure. I've already spoke my piece about her, so number 4 for me is Bailey. Okay, so Bailey has really everything you can ask for in a babyface. Um, I think she has played that underdog role to perfection when she was in NXT. She has done her thing, and granted, she doesn't look as strong as she should as women's champion right now. Not necessarily her fault, but um, like I'm just gonna kind of not get into detail about that. I'm just gonna kind of you know be a wrestling fan and just kind of sing her praises here. So she like like fuck. I'm trying to, build steam of what I'm trying to say here. Okay. Look, Bailey is genuinely one of the best all around. When wrestling goes, Bailey goes for gold. She is, my favorite to watch in the ring. She is my favorite when it comes to the moveset she has, because her moveset is so unique. It's crazy. Like, I love the little the little low spring elbow drop that she does. I'm sure you know which move I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She has the little shuriken. She has the she she has what's it called? The little Ultimate Warrior stuff, which from her, I don't mind it so much. I don't know why,
either, because
but
she has her Macho Man-esque elbow drop too,
yeah,
and that's one thing I enjoy about Bailey. Because just when I look at her, I see a throwback to wrestling when I loved it at its best, which was
yeah,
late '80s, early '90s. So when I look at Bailey, just looking at her, it reminds me of that, and that's a really good time for me in wrestling. So that's why I kind of enjoy her, because she has all these little small throwbacks in her movesets, that
yeah.
makes you just think of wrestlers from the past.
And speaking of throwback, she's also a really good throwback in the sense of her organic fan base, like her,
Yeah.
just how organically built she was. Like, her character, started from nothing and made her way to the top. And
And her character is like your classic character back from the '80s and '90s in wrestling, and I
yeah,
love it. Some
yeah,
people
and
think it's lame, but I'm like, that's how wrestling was when I was a kid. There was a lot of characters like her, very positive, uplifting you. You wanted to root for them.
yeah, and the fact that it's getting over, like, the fact
Yeah.
that it's getting over in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. Need I say more? Look, it's crazy to think, because that was a character I did not think would ever get over.
But it's
And
like you said, it's organic. Like, she just makes it
yeah,
seem so organic. So when you look at Bailey, that's who you expect to meet in real life. And the funny thing is, when you're watching her in interviews, like off camera, like in that Breaking
yeah,
Ground documentary, Bailey is like that in real life. Like,
yeah,
Bailey's just going out there and being herself. She's not playing a role. So like,
yeah,
it all is organic, and that's why it works.
yeah,
That is Bailey. Because when I see her on that documentary, I'm just like, dude, this is really who she is. I mean, she
yeah,
talks the same way and everything. Like, it's crazy, but it's cute too, and
yeah.
that's why I do like Bailey. But like you said, it's because it's really organic, and that's why it works. And I don't think any other girl could pull that gimmick off.
I really don't think any other girl could. I mean, I
Because you know
mean,
what, it would feel forced. It wouldn't feel real. With Bailey, it just feels real. So
it's truly
you root
genuine
for
with
that.
Bailey,
Yeah.
and there's just not much more you could ask for when it comes to stuff like that. All right, number 3.
All right, my number 3 goes to a woman who I really hope ends up in the Hall of Fame one day, and that is China. The late China. God, where do I begin with China? China comes in, and I'm not gonna lie. I think I was a teenager, and I'm like, is this a dude or a woman? And
Ha!
the debut, China just manhandles Terry Runnels, and I'm just like, what the hell? And then Raw comes out, you find out it's a woman. You're just like, no way. And then China just always commanded your attention, just her presence alone. Then she starts getting in the ring and she's working these dudes left and right, and you're just like, this, you gotta be joking. Then she starts winning championships and she's in King of the Ring tournaments and heavyweight title matches. And China was a lot of fun to watch. It's really unfortunate, like, how her life unraveled after her career ended and everything like that, everything that
Yeah.
happened. I'm really sorry for all that, but I will never forget, and I'll always celebrate what she did, not just for women's wrestling, but for wrestling in general. Um,
Mhm.
the stuff China was doing was unheard of, never before really seen in wrestling. First woman in the Royal Rumble, first woman Intercontinental Champion, first woman, I think, two-time Intercontinental Champion. I think she may be the only woman to win the Intercontinental Championship. You know, first and only woman to win a WWF Heavyweight Championship. You know, go toe-to-toe with Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, stuff like this is crazy.
Yeah.
And China was a very good wrestler. So, I mean, damn, I honestly, I miss China. I think her career ended way too early, and of course over backstage politics, you know, with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon or whatnot. But I think Triple H and Stephanie have come around from all that craziness from back then. But I really hope she ends up in the Hall of Fame. She really deserves to be. I mean, she's one of the greatest women's wrestlers, greatest women's performers or entities of all time, and she needs to be remembered forever. So yeah, China number 3.
All right, cool. So number 3 for me, we got. Oh, okay. Sorry, I had to pull up my phone. All right, number 3, we got Trish Stratus. So, all right, you pretty much mentioned everything I was about to say. Talking about all the respect, you know, where she came from, not a damn lick of experience. And you know, like when she first started, she was the equivalent to Eva Marie. You know, not the best in the mic, or not the best in the ring. But hey, unlike Eva Marie, freaking Trish, she is proving like she is there for wrestling in general. She wanted to get better, and she did. She became.
And it's like she improved more and more every week.
Yeah. So, you know, it's crazy to think these certain things, but you know what? I would be damned if I did not put Trish on this list. You know, Trish was my favorite wrestler before a lot of these people. Before I couldn't even name a top 5 even. And I'm sure Trish would have been one of the only people on that list of my top favorite women's wrestlers. And again, there's really not too much reason as to why I didn't like her. You know, I loved the characters that she played. I remember the Mickie James obsession storyline and wanting.
Oh, I love that storyline.
Yeah, and rooting for Trish so much to finally get her revenge. I remember
beat her for the championship at WrestleMania.
I remember when I actually heard about that.
Came in strong.
I remember when I actually heard about that,
because Mickie was supposed to be the heel in that match, and the crowd was behind her, and that was because Mickie was just amazing.
Yeah,
you know?
And she is amazing. You know,
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember watching that match, and of course I'm always Team Trish, but even a part of me was rooting for Mickie. I was like, this crazy bitch. I was like, all right, Mickie, get her. No, wait, Trish, go on, Mickie. I remember Mickie won. I got happy. You know.
And I was probably the only one who was like mad that Trish lost.
Yeah.
Now you think of how I am for Becky. This was my woman right here. This was Trish. I genuinely had a crush on her. I was like, yeah.
I feel you. She was always my woman. She always will be. I mean, she'll be my greatest women's wrestler of all time. But my list wasn't, you know, based off that as far as 10-1.
Yeah. All right, number 2.
Number 2 for me. This is where it started getting really tough too, because there's only 2 more spots, and I still had like 5 more women that I wanted to mention. So I really had to narrow it down. I did it the best I could. My number 2 goes to Jazz. I don't know if many of you remember who Jazz was.
Yes, I do.
But Jazz was a phenomenal.
The bitch is back and the bitch is black. I remember.
There you go. Yes. And what few may really know is Jazz started in ECW. So, you know,
really?
Jazz, she was. Yeah, oh yeah, her start was in ECW.
That's
So
crazy.
Jazz was whooping ass over with the, you know, the Extreme Clan over there, and that's where I first noticed her, and I was like,
that's funny because knowing her wrestling style, I would have never guessed.
Well, yeah, and actually for ECW at the time, it was suitable because Jazz was always that. She's technically sound, but she was very muscular, so she used a lot of power moves, and she was very rough in the ring. And at that time, you didn't see a lot of that oh well, at least outside of ECW, you
Yeah.
know, and even in ECW, she was rousing those chicks up.
Yeah.
And most of the chicks in ECW, I wouldn't say were like extremely tough. You know, a lot of them were really hot with big boobs and stuff, but you had the few that were tough. And, you know, watching Jazz just whoop them up, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So she comes over to the WWF, and I'm like, oh, shit. And that's right after Trish wins her first women's championship. And then she's like beating the hell out of her. And I'm like, oh, this division's in for it. And I think Jazz was good for the division at the time because I think they needed a woman like her because they honestly didn't have any women on the roster like her at the time.
Yeah.
Most women were very technically sound, high flying. Then you just have this roughhouse come in there who has a body like them but wrestles totally different. So Jazz was a very interesting piece of work and, you know, a very good women's wrestler. I believe she was a 2 or 3-time WWF Women's Champion.
Yeah.
So I wish her career would have been a little bit longer, you know. I think she left to just focus on marriage and stuff like that 'cause she was married to Rodney Mack. But, dude, I had to have Jazz on the list. You know, she's a good throwback to when I really enjoyed women's wrestling.
Yeah. All right, number 2, Natalya. Okay.
Oh, she was one of the ones I struggled with putting on the list, unless she's my
Yeah.
number 1.
Okay, Natalya. All right. In the ring, there is no debate who is as. There is no debate as who's the best in the ring right now. Natalya is the most technically sound woman out there. She, you know, she is so fun to watch for me, even because, you know, I watch her, I think of all the wrestling matches I've ever had. You know, I see the single legs, I see the double legs, I see, you know, the head and arms, all the stuff that she does, you know.
Right.
That is probably my favorite aspect of Natalya's wrestling. You know, she's not known for her mic skills, and that's okay. She doesn't need to be, because, you know, her in-ring ability more than made up for that. You know,
Right.
she has.
Which I think her mic skills are actually improving a little bit.
They are for sure, and I'm happy about that. But when it comes to her in the ring, you know, there's just nothing that trumps it. There, you know, you look at her body of work in terms of matches, there is nothing that trumps how well she performs. You know, she can make a really bad looking match look really good.
That's very true.
And hold on. Eddie!
Yep.
Oh, that's what happened. All right. Well, look, she can make a really bad looking match look really good. Natalya, there's just nothing I can, and I mean absolutely nothing I can say that would do the description of her matches justice, because she is just that damn good in the ring. And
so I'm surprised she hasn't had more championships. That's one thing that disappoints me with WWE's booking style.
I'm surprised
sometimes.
at that too. Now, at the same time, I kind of get it, because, you know, you were coming around the time there was a new crop of women's wrestlers, and you got to kind of put them over. But, you know, I think Natty, you know, even right now, she should have. I personally believe she should have won that women's title against Charlotte. I personally think, yeah.
Yeah. No, I do too. She more than deserved it at that point, you know.
Yeah. But... And, you know, she didn't, but, you know, that would have been amazing. I think, you know, that would have been amazing. That would have been perfect, because, you know, you have the IWC that's behind her. You have kids that are behind her. Nobody would have complained. I only think her winning it would have made, you know, for a perfect ending, a perfect story for Natalya. Even if it was like a short-lived title reign, I don't mind. Have her lose it, you know.
Yeah. I guess I'd settle for that with Natalya. I wanted to see her have a nice reign, though, because I feel like with her skills and what she's done for the business, she more than deserves it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Natalya's never been one just to ride off of her family's legacy or name.
Yeah.
She really built a name for herself. And these second, third, fourth generation superstars, I give them more respect for that because they didn't become their parent, whoever the relative was. They became their own person, you
I
know.
think if I were to
And
make a
this,
I think if I were to make a top 10 list of my 10 favorite heart wrestlers, if there is, that many in the wrestling business, Natalia
oh,
would
there
be
is.
up there, at least in the bottom 3.
Yeah.
um
Oh yeah. I mean, if she has a title reign down the line, I wouldn't be upset about it, whether she's heel or face, Raw or SmackDown, because you deserve it, Natty.
yeah, for damn sure. For damn sure. And again, like her wrestling ability is, what catches my interest the most because, when I was wrestling, I would often, watch what she would do and that would kind of work for my wrestling matches, you know?
Right.
And Natty was a big inspiration for me as well. So, there you go. All right, number 1.
All right, my down to number one. Okay, well, before I say my number one, I'm going to give an honorable mention because to fill this spot was really hard. So I'm going to give an honorable mention to Natalia,
Okay.
Beth Phoenix,
Okay.
AJ Lee, and
Okay.
Bull Nakano.
Bull
But
Nakano.
my number one goes to Melina.
Melina.
Um, yes, Melina, in my opinion, was actually one of the best in-ring performers to ever grace the women's division. She was so
I see.
unique, very unique, and I don't think there's been another woman wrestler like her. Like you said, Bailey had a unique moveset, so did Melina. And I mean, she was so flexible and beautiful. And she's another one who she has a small wrestling background. She came into the indies and stuff like that, but she would just want to be more than a hot face. And let's
Yeah.
face it, Melina has one of the most memorable women's entrances ever in wrestling.
That's true. That's
you know,
true.
but if you really watch her in the ring, mixed with her unique style, she was very technically sound. I mean, to the point where Bret Hart even gave her his endorsement at one point. And I think at one point during her career said that she was the best wrestler on the WWF roster at that time. And I kind of agreed with him because it was during that time she was just hot and she was going in there every night and giving everything. Like there's a lot of memorable matches with Melina. And almost like Charlotte and AJ, Melina could play a heel or a face really well. Really well. Almost flawlessly. And
Yeah.
she was always one of those ones where I enjoyed her as a heel or a face, so I was always a Melina fan, like always. And I kind of wish she would have stuck around the company a little bit more, but dude, she's had some classics with like Mickie James and Beth Phoenix and people like that. So my number one goes to Melina because I don't think there's ever been another woman like her, at least
There's
not yet.
You're not getting any complaints from me because like Melina was one of the best. I forget about that. When I think about that time period that she was in. She did have a very unique move set. I remember her finisher was that last call, that one where she puts the leg over the opponent and kind of
Over the
slams him.
neck and then drops down.
Yeah,
It's like a leg drop type of thing, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
That was always a wicked finisher. What was that? The final cut, I guess they called it. Um,
And the way she would execute it, like Melina was so ferocious. I mean, she was just interesting to watch, and then she was beautiful too. So you're like, this is a unique woman right here.
yeah. So you got no complaints from me for sure. All right, number 1 for me. It's a pretty damn obvious pick. I'll be damn shocked if I were to give you one guess. Who would you pick?
Straight fire.
Okay,
Becky Lynch.
you had to do it that way. Okay, look, Becky Lynch, favorite of all time, and here's my reason why. She inspired me to become a pro wrestler. There's not too many people I can say, inspired me to become a pro wrestler other than Becky Lynch. If I were to make a top ten women, not even women's wrestlers, top 10 wrestlers of all time, Becky Lynch is going to be on that list. No damn doubt about it. I I could praise CM Punk, I can praise Christian, I can praise, all these guys who inspired me. But Becky Lynch is also one of those people who are always going to stand out to me just because of the ability that she had. That she has, okay? She is very underappreciated in my opinion because, look at how she started. I thought there was no direction for her when she, started on the main roster, and now I'm just, yeah, I'm beyond belief happy for the character the stuff we're seeing with her. I'm glad we're having to see all the success she's getting, and I'm happy that she isn't getting any backlash for looking so strong, as people may complain
Yeah.
about her. But you can't even make that argument considering she's dropped the belt to Alexa Bliss and put other people over. So she's definitely one of those unselfish workers who are there to stay for years to come. Becky Lynch, one of the best of all time. And
I
I
agree. She's a lot of fun to watch. One of my favorite current ones too. So
yeah. So there you go. That is my top 10. That is Eddie Nigma's top 10. If you guys are interested in you know, um in a topic that you want us to talk over, be sure to email me at eddylynch16@gmail.com. EDDYLYNCH16@gmail.com. I can't be any more clear than that. After show plugs, Gold Coast Wrestling, no known date yet as to when our first show will be. Hopefully with tomorrow's meeting we will get more word on that, and hopefully we will get more structured timing for us. Follow me on Twitter at eJose98. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Eduardo Betancourt. Subscribe to my podcast channel, Podcast Legend Killers, for a better edited version of our podcasts. Follow me on SoundCloud for the best edited versions of our podcast. By the way, to my podcast listeners, if you missed a certain episode and you guys want to go back and watch an old one or whatever, always come to my YouTube channel. That all the archives will be there. Same with my Podbean listeners. All the archives will be there. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can give you guys. So, Mr. Nigma, you care to...
You know what? I'm just gonna plug all the women that we mentioned today and the ones we didn't. For all you wrestling fans out there, if you want to know more in your women's wrestling history and the ladies we were talking about, check out the names that we listed in our top tens and check out their generations of wrestling and their matches. You'll really be treated as a wrestling fan just to some really solid stuff, and you'll get to see how the women of today got here and who inspired them. So,
Yeah.
big applause to all of you women's wrestlers out there, past, present, and future.
Alright, so, with that being said, let's give a match recommendation of the week. I know we gave one yesterday, but I don't care. Let's give another one. Eddie Nigma, you got one?
Well, sure. All right. In the spirit of our Women's Day, I guess we'll call it, I say, you know what? Monday Night Raw. I can't give you guys the date, but I think it was 2003. Raw Roulette, Lita versus Victoria in a steel cage match. First ever women's steel cage match in the history of the WWF. Check it out. It was really fun.
Sounds good. And in the spirit of women's wrestling as well, I'm going to pick Charlotte versus Natalya on Monday Night Raw, the 2 weeks after Mania.
Ooh, I was like, which one?
Yeah.
Which one?
They killed that show. They killed that match like crazy. They busted out moves beyond belief. Their wrestling was on point. 5-star match. They had Dr. Phil on commentary, for crying out loud. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, nothing more can be said about that one. And yeah.
Agree.
So with all that being said,
Wait, in 1 sec. If you guys enjoyed his recommendation, check out their NXT Takeover match as well.
Oh yes, that was definitely one of their best ones. Really enjoyed that one. Actually, I think I was gonna even recommend that one. Okay, so
Man, you know what? People watch both of them. You're welcome.
With that being said, do you have any buy or sells for this week?
Oh God, I forgot to think of one. No, I'll have one for you next time.
Okay, cool. So I got one. Okay, so
All right.
buy or sell Dean Ambrose reforming with the Shield, getting drafted to Raw, or Roman Reigns being a heel and being drafted over to SmackDown.
Oh shit. Oh shit. That's
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Bro, this is tough. All right, with what's going on right now and the direction I see things going in, I will buy Roman Reigns turning heel and going to SmackDown.
Okay. Care to give any reasoning as to why?
Reasoning as to why if the Shield wouldn't seem the same again
Okay.
after WrestleMania because fans are gonna hate Roman Reigns for retiring
Okay.
the Undertaker.
Yeah.
So it would be weird because you're gonna have these two guys they love, and then oh yeah, there's the guy in the back, asshole. So it just wouldn't feel right, you know. So I will buy him going to SmackDown and being a heel because at least he'll take all that heat over to SmackDown. People they'll still watch him being a heel because that's what the people want.
Yeah.
So I think that's a better investment for me to buy.
Okay.
And I'll sell Dean Ambrose coming to Raw and joining the Shield. That was a tough decision, though, man. But I'm just thinking in terms of, okay, what's going to happen in a week? I was like, you know what? This might, yeah, no.
Yeah, that's tough because that's all that had been running through my mind this entire week. And I can't believe I didn't think of the buy or sell yesterday as the buy or sell because I just wanted to see what other people would say. And I think, you know what? If you're listening to this podcast, that is your buy or sell of the week. Dean Ambrose joining the Shield or Roman turning heel. So take that as you will. And yeah, guys, we are out.
Damn, that was a...
Yeah, what can you do?